welcome back to part 2 when we actually get to hear Joelle's voice for once.
I've been talking.
I've been talking. So this is part 2 of our COVID story, and this is Joelle's take on it and what he went through while I was in the hospital.
Or even before that.
Yeah, from the very beginning, the struggle.
Yeah, so I'm just, Danielle brought this topic up about how she wanted to bring this to everybody, and I honestly wasn't sure if I was ready to talk about it like this. You know, I've talked about it with people, you know, but not a lot of details, not a lot of sharing with a ton of people. So this is huge because this is like one of the biggest things that has impacted our life, especially our marriage, our family. You know, we've gone through some stuff, but this is definitely one of the top things that we've gone through. But anyways, COVID sucked. It really did. It just, health-wise, we were just all over the place. Every day was like a new symptom. Taste was just crazy. Everything tasted salty.
We literally went through every symptom that people talk about.
Because you don't know, at least for us, we didn't lose our taste or smell. It was just distorted. It was, things tasted salty, things tasted sour. You know, pizza, ranch was salty. Gatorade, which I was supposed to drink for electrolytes, would like stay on my tongue, and I had to like pretty much brush my teeth just to get the taste off of it. It was super weird.
Yeah. And because of all that, we were losing weight. Like, I was pregnant, and I weighed myself, and I had lost like 8 pounds. Yeah. And I didn't even realize I was losing weight.
I called it the COVID diet. And
we don't recommend that, folks.
No. But anyways, it was really scary, but at the same time, we were just living it in the moment, you know, and so taking it one day at a time. I try my best to just stick to working in the day. It was really tough because I had a bad cough, and so like I had to put myself on mute. Working from home, you know, speaking in meetings, and put myself in mute really often because I had a cough, and I had the chills. I would be covering myself in my blanket in the chair, and I kept pushing myself. Danielle was like, "Stop working," and I was like,
"I was so mad at you." I'm like, "You are in no shape to be working."
I felt physically, I felt like I was okay to work at home. You know, like it's different than driving, going out, being in the office, being in front of people, fully dressed in what you're doing. Like being at home, you can be in, you know, more comfortable clothes and be there and take a break if you need to, and it's just different. So I felt like I could push through it a little bit more. But it wasn't until, I mean, obviously there was days I felt really bad. I had to take off regardless, but it wasn't until Danielle started feeling really, really bad that I had to really take days off because she couldn't take care of the kids. And if she can't take care of the kids, I can't work. Kid, sorry.
We only had one kid at that time. The other one was
just
chilling in my tummy.
But yeah, our days would be spent just laying on the couch all day watching Coco Melon because we didn't want to get after Jalen. You know, we just wanted him to be entertained. We just wanted to rest and sleep, and but yeah. And so to fast forward a little bit, when I took Danielle to the hospital for the second time, she mentioned that she went there twice, but for the second time, which is the time that she went through most of what she went through, it was hard because, one, I felt like crap. I was super nauseous. I remember trying to change Jalen's diaper, you know, and I just could barely even do it. I just wanted to like throw up. But not even that, just laying down, walking especially, just made me really nauseous at that time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to drive you to the hospital. And not that I didn't want to, it's just
He's a great husband.
it was crazy. And at the same time, I was scared, and I didn't want to take her back to the hospital because we had already gone through that. Even though she came back the same day, right? You weren't admitted that day, right?
The first time, no.
Even though she was back the same day, I didn't know. So being away from her for those hours initially was hard, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. You know, we just got done with that. I thought that was the worst of it. Boy, was that not the worst of it. And I just remember in that moment, and even after, I felt so horrible because I was in the van. I dropped her off at the front, and Jalen was in the back of the van, and I didn't even have the opportunity to get out of the van, help her, walk her to, because she could barely breathe. She didn't have a lot of energy. Sorry, it's really hard for me to tell this story because I just start thinking about, I have visuals and just watching her walk so slowly into the hospital. And I felt like I couldn't do anything for her because I didn't want to leave. We're in downtown Tacoma, which is, you know, not always the safest area. Lots of homeless and things like that. And I didn't feel comfortable leaving Jalen in the car. And I also didn't feel comfortable leaving my wife, but, you know, to let her walk by herself. But at the same time, we did what we had to do in that moment.
Yeah.
I let her walk in, and I waited in the parking lot for probably like an hour, I think, because I didn't want to leave. I wanted her to give me updates on how she was doing, whether she was going to stay, or whatever was happening. I just wanted to know at all times, and I wanted to be there just in case. I don't even know. It's not realistic, obviously, to be there, sitting there waiting for her to come out. But at some point, I was just like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta get something for Jay, you know, our son, to eat. And so I left, you know, got him some food, came home, and the hardest thing for me, as far as just being home with our son, was just feeling the way that I felt, just so out of it, tired, nauseous, sick, fever, everything, and having to be essentially a single father at that time. You know, I had to get up when he got up at 6 a.m, whatever, to get him up, get him changed, get him dressed, watch TV, give him all of his meals, you know,
and his snacks.
And you know, kids at that age, they're very messy eaters. Every time he would make a mess on the floor, he would make a mess all over his face. We had to clean him. We had to clean the floor. And that in itself taught me a lot. Just to not take those things for granted. Because Danielle does that stuff every day. I mean, I help her. But while I'm working, you know, she's doing that on her own. And I never realized how difficult, how hard, and how much energy that it takes to do that. So it brought this huge appreciation for, you know, what she does for us and our family. And I'll get to that more a little bit later. But that was hard, just being home, feeling that way, plus having Danielle in the hospital, not knowing what's happening because she barely had any energy to text me. And all I wanted to do was text her, but at the same time, I wanted to let her rest. So I was just fighting it, you know, like I don't want to message her too much, you know, and just waiting for her to read my messages and to write me back. And I just remember writing her and just like staring at my phone for minutes at a
The
time.
guts.
Well,
Just a
no,
little-
just waiting for it to be read, you know?
Oh.
And, you know, once she finally wrote back, you know, at some point, then of course I'd be really happy. But that was an ongoing thing, you know, it's just because that's all we had. You know, I can't be there with her. And when she started going through her treatments, the ones that she mentioned, especially the helmet one, you know, the doctor would talk to me and say, hey, you know, this is not working, you know, and we have to, you know, we're going to keep trying, but nothing seems to be working at this point right now. I told Danielle, I was like, babe, you gotta, because I don't think she really went into this, but, you know, with the claustrophobic feeling, she was having trouble finishing the treatment.
Oh, yeah.
And they would end it early because she was not tolerating it. And so I told her, like, hey, you gotta push through, you know, this is really important. I know that it's hard. I can't even imagine what you're going through right now, but we need to give this our best shot. And she did it that one last time. I think they did it for like 4 hours, and
Yeah,
she did
I made myself.
Yeah, she did a great job. And I remember you saying that you were thirsty. You know, it was making you thirsty, and you couldn't drink because you couldn't stop the treatment. And I remember you said you prayed. You prayed for God to wet your tongue, wet your mouth, just to feel it. And it was really cool because you said that at some point you did feel that your mouth got a little bit, you know, moist to the point where it was a little more comfortable, and that was really cool to hear.
Allowed me to keep going.
But anyways, when the doctor called me and said this last one didn't work, he said at this point the best thing for her, because her lungs have failed, is for us to intubate her and to you know, give her a C-section. And at that point I had no idea what was going to happen. And I'm so glad that my sister-in-law was here to support. She came to assist with my son to allow me to get some ounce of rest because I could barely sleep at night. But the day that they intubated her and our son, Jordan, was born, that was probably the hardest day of my life. And I remember that night I couldn't sleep. I tried to sleep, but all I kept thinking about was her and was she gonna be okay? Not knowing what's happening, you know, only being able to call the doctor, you know, 2-3 times a day to get an update. But sometimes those updates weren't even as informative as we would want to be, you know. And that night, I remember my mouth was also dry because I was 1-6, so I was breathing through my mouth a lot, and you know, just going through the stress of it all. And I couldn't even sleep because my mouth kept getting dry. I kept having to wake up to drink water, and I was, you know, shaking and crying. And I remember my pastor called me that night to give me some words of wisdom, and that was helpful. But not even that in crying or praying would calm me enough in that moment to be able to even fall asleep. And I just remember kind of briefly nodding off and waking back up and looking at the time and just anticipating the next day. And it was the weirdest feeling because I didn't want the next day to come, because part of me didn't want to know how she was doing, which is weird because I just didn't want to hear any bad news. But at the same time, I was desperate for the next day to come because I wanted to know that she was okay. I remember I called my dad at 4 a.m. Like, I was like, all right, this is my day. My day's starting. It's 4 a.m. And I'm going to call my dad. And I actually forgot to mention that while trying to sleep, I called my dad. We spoke for probably 1 to 2 hours, just having a conversation so I can calm myself down. And I appreciated that so much. It was so nice to have him there in that moment and just talk. You know, it was such a raw and real conversation, you know, in general. And anyways, I called my dad at 4 a.m. again because he said, just call me anytime. Like, I'm here. And called him at 4, and he was like, oh, good morning. I'm already on my way to church. It was a Friday morning, and they have prayer service on Fridays at his church. And he's like, I'm on my way. Let me call you back when I get there, because we'll do a prayer for you. Because when I called him, I was shaking uncontrollably. I've never felt that way before. And the reason why I had such a tough night outside from her being intubated and stuff was that before they intubated her, we talked to the doctor, and when he said that they were going to do that, my sister-in-law was asking a bunch of questions, and essentially he was like, we don't know if she's going to survive. We've seen cases where the mother has her baby and she gets better, and it's a good story. And we've seen cases of the opposite, where not even the baby being born helps her to get better, and they don't make it. So at this point, we don't know. We can't tell you whether she's going to make it. All we can tell you is her numbers don't look good. And he essentially said, and I don't know if he meant it in this way, but in that moment, it felt like he meant it that way. But he said, did you want to have any last words to your wife before we do this procedure? You know? And to me, that meant last words I'd say to my wife ever. And I was on the phone with my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, and all three of us were trying to say stuff to Danielle almost at the same time, just giving her, you know, trying to be as positive as possible as much as we could. But in my head, it was all a panic. But just giving her support and saying, you're going to be okay, you're going to do great, I love you. And I had no idea if that was going to be the last I love you that I told her. And after I got off that call, I just lost it. I lost it on the phone. Then I hung up, tried calling my brother and sister. They were busy. It was a work day. And I called my pastor. He picked up the phone, and crying, I told him what was happening. And I could barely control myself. And in that moment, he put on a prayer for us. And I was so emotional that I did something I'd never done before. I ended up crying so hard that it made me vomit, which was crazy. And it was embarrassing too. Having him pray, and I don't know if he was on speakerphone or not, because other people were there too praying. And I was just over here praying and throwing up, praying and throwing up. And that was probably like one of the most powerful prayers we've ever had because of this, what was going on and how I was feeling and yeah. So that was a very tough day, and I couldn't sleep that night. And waking up that next morning when my dad said, "Hey, I'm gonna pray with you," it was so nice. Um, we prayed. Someone was playing the guitar in the background. It was just very peaceful. Something about the music, the gentle, quiet prayer, and it being 5 in the morning was very calming, and it allowed me to gain some peace, some of my faith that was struggling in those moments, and yeah, it was just huge, and power of prayer is just so powerful, to help us in those situations. And anyways, long story short, after that, by the grace of God, every day, her numbers were improving. They still weren't in good numbers, but my sister-in-law was very good at taking notes and asking specific questions, and we were able to kind of monitor how she was doing with her lab results and seeing her trend. And every day was getting better, and
you also got to Skype me or Zoom.
Yeah,
me
that's
every day.
Thank you for reminding me.
I don't remember it, but
while she was intubated, we got the opportunity to Skype her, and the Skype meetings were very interesting, and they were very heartbreaking because I got to see her in her state, laying in that bed with the tube down her throat in a way that I've never seen her before, just weak and out of it. And I went from seeing her walking into the hospital to seeing her like that. And it was completely heartbreaking. And we were, I would say, hi, and just have like a little simple conversation and do a prayer. And one of the meetings, she was able to kind of move her eyebrows, move her head just a little bit, her hand. So I knew that she could hear and understand what we were saying. But there were other calls that we did where she was completely out, and I had no idea whether she could hear me or not. And there's even a moment where you went into like convulsions or something, almost like you're having a seizure. I don't know what triggered that for you in that moment, but it was very disturbing and scary. And I was like, all right, well, we're going to end the call here because I don't want to, this is for you to get better, not to get worse.
I don't remember any of that, obviously, you guys. Like, I was completely out. But obviously, like you said, too, I had some kind of reaction. So I was hearing you, but I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, and I always thought that, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to even ask that question to her when I said, did you even hear? Did you even know that I was talking to you? And she said no. And that was so sad because, in that moment, I was wondering, can she really hear me? Can she really understand what I'm saying right now? Because it seems like she is, and she really wasn't. And that's so sad because I think of all the different situations of people living right now,
going through
the same thing, not even just COVID.
Yeah.
And not to say that everyone won't be able to hear or understand, but I would have never known that, had she had not survived this, and be able to ask those questions after that. But fast forwarding to the end, when she was rolled out of the hospital and she was being discharged, and I saw her, like she said, I probably would have cried even more if the nurse wasn't standing right there. Because I cried, and then we put her in the car, and then I grabbed her again, and I cried again. Um, it was mostly just because, I mean, obviously she was back with me, but I just could not believe the miracle that God had done. You know, we had prayed so much. We had, you know, the priests at the Catholic church we go to. We had our pastor pray for the church that I've been attending my whole life, and
My sister contacted countless people that she knows everywhere.
yeah, and
And
just
they contacted people, and it was amazing.
and we just prayed so hard for this because I just knew that this couldn't be the end of her story. And in that moment, I had serious thoughts of being a single father and what that life would be like. How would I, how would I work a job having 2 kids under 2 by my, I would have to get, you know, take them to daycare. I don't know, probably wouldn't be able to afford that. I have no idea, and I don't even want to think about what life would be like that.
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful that both my wife and my son are okay and they're here. And because, I mean, even for our oldest son, Jalen, I mean, it was hard for him too. You know, I remember taking him to the park and, you know, he was happy, but he was on a swing and he didn't even like want to hold the swing. You know, he was just looking sad and down, and I'd never seen him like that before. You know,
And you said you didn't even notice it
yeah.
at the park until you looked at pictures.
I did. I noticed that he was off, but it was the pictures that really spoke super loud about
it made me
what
cry.
it looked like in that moment. And it's so hard to, as a parent, to see that. But I'm just glad that although it was hard, we took a lot from it. And I want to give a shout out to all my family, all my friends, everyone at church that supported us during this time, gave us food, money, just you name it, you know, and we just were blown away by the amount of support that we were given. And we just love every one of you. Yes, we're definitely blessed. And yeah, that's not every detail of my story, because I would be here all day if I told every ounce of what I felt throughout that time and every detail that happened. But yeah, it was just a very, very hard time. But I think the biggest thing that I can take away from this is just knowing that God is there for us. No matter what we go through, He's our provider. He can still do miracles if we pray. She's a living miracle. My son's a living miracle. And we don't take each other for granted anymore, you know? Where before I used to be, sometimes I could be lazy and not want to do something for her. Now I think twice. I'm like, well, God gave her back to me. I have to do this for her, you know? And that just deepens
and
our
vice
relationship.
versa. Same thing, like, I let him rest a little bit longer. You know, we won't go into that.
But it just brought us deeper and closer than we ever thought we could be. We thought we were close and, you know, already, but this brought it to a whole nother level, and I just pray that we continue that going forward. So yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so speaking of, you know, how we're continuing, there's going to be lots of content about that and how what we've done has helped us and how it could possibly help you. in your marriage or your relationship. So we're just going to end this video. Stay tuned for the next one. Comment. You can subscribe if you haven't done it already. Hit the bell. Can't say it enough. And thumbs up so others can see it as well. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. Be safe.
Thank you. Too blessed.